What's happening, everyone? Sorry for the delay on getting a video back to you guys. I've been working pretty hard lately. We got super busy right after Christmas, so I've been trying to play catch up. Andrew was sick for about a week straight, close, and had some family stuff, so been working some overtime. Anyways, I sold some parts to a friend, Brandon, out in Washington last night, and he's like, dude, you should do a video for YouTube about installing heights, valve spring heights. And I was like, well, your lucky day, I have 2 sets to do tomorrow. So I went and picked up some LS7 heads. I had Shane from Extreme CFM, just ran a quick CNC program on these. Did CHE guides, which is obviously a huge thing with the factory LS7s. They have brass valve guides from the factory, and they have factory titanium intake valves. So the problem with that is obviously brass wears. And then also these titanium valves, once they get a little wear on them, they will get abrasive, so almost like sandpaper. So what it does is accelerate the wear of the guide, and so these need to be polished or replaced, etc. So Shane had polished these up really good for me and run them through the tumbler, I'm assuming, because they look like they're absolutely brand new. And then I sent the heads to Brian, my normal guy, and he sized the guides and then did a valve job and did a great job. We cut 30 off these heads specifically, not that this pertains to the video, to raise the compression to the high 11.6.5, 11.7-1 for an LS7 build that we have here in house. But anyways, I'll babble forever and I will pass that, as you guys know. So when you open up a set of Brian Tooley Racing springs, this set specifically is their 685 lift spring kit. This one has a stainless exhaust valve, so I'm going to run 685s because that can get us 450 pounds of open seat pressure. So the instructions on this, on your valve spring box, instructions, however you want it, this is basically the capabilities of this valve spring. So, you know, your standard 660s off the shelf or 560s, whatever they may be. These ones being the 685 for specifically, if we install this spring where it says, you know, the different inches. So 1.8 inches would be your install height. And at 1.8 inches, if that's what we desire, we will have 170 pounds of pressure, of force to hold that valve closed. So then, you know, hypothetically, whatever that valve lift is, if you set this at 1.8, you would subtract, say this cam specifically is 0.66 lift. We would go 1.8, take away 0.66, which would leave us with 1.14. So coil bind on this is 1.0. So at 1.115, we will achieve 450 pounds of pressure. So what I like to do, if you're going to spin it higher, if you want good valve stability, obviously you can take these aways. Common practice, I think, is people will keep them 50 from coil bind. So if coil bind on this valve spring is 1.0000, you could set these up to where your camshaft is going to open that valve to 1.050. It would be at the limit, a little bit close for me. I try to keep it a little further back, but that's, you know, that's technically acceptable. So end of the day, I'm going to shoot for where our open is 1.115, which would give us 450 pounds of open pressure. So if we add 0.66 to that, we would be 1.765 or 1.775. So what we would do is if this spring comes up at 1.8 inches, we would need a 25 shim to get it back to a 1.775, which is when the valve is closed, etc. So I'll just keep running my mouth forever, and I'm trying to be better about that. But I also wanted to be descriptive, so sorry if this is long for you and some of you guys are bored because you already know the answer. So this is a spring micrometer height install micrometer. So this is a BTR one specifically, and to no fault of theirs, these are mass produced. Always check these with a set of calipers, especially if they're new, and maybe every once in a while. You're spinning on them, you're moving them with there's pressure on it, you're trying to get it just right. They can move. I've checked them, you know, every other time or every few times I use them. I like to check it because I don't want to make a huge mistake. I've done it once where I put a set of heads together and I'm like, damn, that looks way off. And it was because this was a long ways off. So, and it was a new one out of the box. I hadn't checked at the time. So now I just make it common practice that I do. So I got this one set to 1.8 and I'll check it with my calipers. This is something you should do at least every once in a while. So when this reads right at 1.80 technically, we're at 1.795. So we're 0.0005 away. That's got it pretty dialed. But that's something that, you know, I've I would assume not a lot of people double check this. They just take this as the gospel and that's it. So that's something good to check. I guess moving on, we've got a valve spring compressor tool, obviously. Valve seals, titanium retainers, the locators, and I have some 15 and 30 shims. So if you're planning on setting your springs up correctly, you're gonna need shims and probably plenty of them. I always just buy 100 packs because I use them all the time. If you open any of your BTR springs, it's not very often, but you'll see this label or this warning. This means do not use the hat style, factory style valve seals with dual springs. You're gonna have a bad day. I'm glad they put this in here because, I mean, maybe not everyone knows, but if you see this, don't just toss it in the trash and go over anyways. So the thing is, these locators are not fixed to the seal like the other style. So, and the difference is the locator is wider at the base than the seal is. So if you do not use this with this inner spring is going to bind and it's going to break and you're going to have a very bad day. So, all right, moving on. Obviously, if you're putting valves in, it's always good to lubricate the valves a little bit. You don't have to get crazy, but a little something, something. Every once in a while, people put stuff in there dry, and that's probably not going to hurt nothing, but it's good on startup if you do, especially if you got an expensive set of heads. You can't be too cautious. My little tin man oil canister, we use it all the time. I love this thing. So I put a little bit of oil on that. Got some Comp 30 weight braking oil on here since we're breaking it in, you know. Spin it around really good. Make sure there's no dry spots. It's common sense, obvious stuff. So we'll get all these in there and then we'll move on. I better not be getting sick. I've been sniffling today. I can't be sick. All right, obviously once you get the valves in, this is something that you got to be fast at. You pretty much have to be a ninja if you want to flip this over without dumping these valves everywhere. You got to be a super badass. I don't want it that way. I want it the other way. Anyways, when you get this into a working spot, get the valves on, flip that bad boy over. See there, didn't even spill on. Winning. So what we're gonna do is first is you're gonna take your locator. Obviously there's no other obstructions in here. You're gonna put your locator in there. You're gonna take your valve height tool. You're gonna get it at a neutral location of some sort. And then you're gonna put a retainer in. After you get a retainer, you're gonna get some locks. And then you're gonna shove these locks in here. And I did forget to grab my little magnet and flathead, so I'll have to go grab that in a second, so bear with me. All right, we're back. And I'm not cool enough to have sponsors, but this video is not sponsored by Propel. I actually hate this stuff, but it's the best tasting water I've ever had. And I hate water. I like sodas, but I'm trying not to be fat. So, back to wherever we were. I already forgot because I had to walk and grab a drink and then I washed my hands and I turned the music on for 5 minutes anyways. So, we were shooting for 1.770 to 1.775 for the closed valve spring height. So what that means is if we're at 1.775 and we subtract this 0.660 of the camshaft, that gets us to 1.115, which is where this valve spring will make 450 pounds of open pressure. That means there's 450 pounds of pressure to push that valve and to close that valve, which is it makes the valve more stable. Obviously there's limits to everything, but more pressure, more stability, more valve control to a degree of everything depending on the cam lobe and design and stuff. But anyways, that's what we're shooting for as described earlier. So I had to grind a little bit of that locator shim because it's hitting the casting on the heads. Long story short, most of the time you don't have to do that. Like cathedral heads and stuff, you don't ever have to do that. They have plenty of space. But anyways, right now, so I shimmed this one with a 0.032 and a 0.0112, whichever it was, and it got me to 1.770, which is dead nuts where I want to be. So that will give us a good amount of valve control, both through the ramp rate, open and closed, and wide open. We're in a good spot. And then we are still a long ways from coil bind. So super safe and plenty of valve spring pressure for these LS7s. This one has really light intake valves. They're titanium and really light Varia exhaust valve. So everyone does different stuff. I like to grab a marker that I also forgot on my journey a few minutes ago. I will grab real quick. Hold on, bear with me. I will write above that valve what that was. That is 1.770. So that way when I move to the next one, I know what that one was, etc. So that's a very easy thing to do. It's a very easy way to basically keep track of what you're doing. So then we'll just work on this valve so this video doesn't take forever. Obviously your heavy valve seal, don't forget that. That's gonna keep oil out of the cylinder. So then you got your little tool to apply it. Sometimes you can shove these on if you're strong enough. I do, every once in a while I tap on, but I can shove them on just as fast. So that one is basically set up. So what I'll do, just to speed this video up, is throw another one of those in there, throw a couple of valve springs on there, and just kind of run you through the process while we have the video going, because this is already gonna take 20 minutes. I don't wanna be here for an hour. And then you have, this one's a comp dual spring install ordeal. Grab my impact. Switch the socket out. Grab a couple of retainers. Grab your retainers, grab the other portion of the tool. Slide it on here. These springs are really strong, so sometimes they're hard to get them in. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna have this set up, and then you are going to obviously tighten it down enough to where that valve is open. Then you're gonna take your couple of locks. Obviously this, if you're changing valve springs, you should definitely know how to do this, but since we're right here, we'll just keep plugging away at it. Get these bad boys in there. My fingers are cold. Which commonly I wait until I'm all the way done before I put any of the valve springs in, but I just wanted to show you guys. So like this one is now set up to 1.770. The valve spring is secure, the retainer is secure, the locks are installed. I must be getting tired and dumb. I'm always dumb, sorry. So it's a pretty simple process though. At the end of the day, you have the valve spring height micrometer. And this basically tells you how tall the distance is from the seat where the valve spring sits on the locator to the top of your retainer or bottom of your retainer, and how far that valve spring is crushed inside of there, which dictates why BTR and many others provide you with how much pressure they are at different heights. These are the heights, these are the pressures. So it's a super cool, easy process. We set every set of heads up that we do like this, even if it's pretty much bone stock, we at least get them really, really close. And a lot of them are, you know, the LS stuff is designed to drop in. So if you feel confident about it, go ahead. But for the most part, like even with the guys over the years, we try to at least check 1 or 2 valves on every head actually, like even if they're bone stock, just to see, because you don't know, has that head ever been reconditioned? Has it had a valve job? Has damage occurred? Is it mismatched? You don't know. So it's always nice to check it. It's always good practice. It's super easy. You just have to have the small little tools to make it happen, and shims to get you back where you want to go. But it's a really easy process. So not sure if I can be more descriptive than that. That seems to be pretty detailed for what we're doing. This is a pretty simple process, and hopefully that you guys learned something from that.